Hi, and welcome to Full Circle Purpose. Today, I want to talk about emotional triggers because those can expose where we are operating in the self-will. So if you want to know where your self-will lives, don't look at your plans, look at your reactions. If you want to know where your self-will lives, don't look at your plans, look at your reactions. Your triggers are not accidents. They are invitations for maturity. So what do our triggers really reveal? James tells us in chapter 1, verse 19, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. If we're triggered by something, that'll indicate to us where we feel threatened, we feel unseen, we feel out of control. Self-will reacts where spirit-led maturity responds. So let's look at this from an emotional intelligence standpoint. Emotions are information, not instructions. Anger may say, this matters. Fear may say, I don't feel safe. But maturity asks, what is God inviting me to heal here? In Proverbs chapter 16, verse 32, it says, better a patient person than a warrior. So what is our practical application? When we're triggered, we should pause. Name the emotion. Ask, what's the belief underneath this feeling? And submit that belief to God. This is how emotional intelligence becomes spiritual formation. Sometimes it's difficult to process something if we don't give it the time and space to actually figure out what is it that we're feeling. And a lot of times, if we're trying to process something, but we haven't accurately named the thing that we're feeling, then it's also difficult to process that. That's why it's important then at the point that we feel triggered to take a moment and reflect back. And I know that it's difficult in the moment of being triggered to actually pause and step aside, but maybe after those emotions subside where you can actually reflect on something. I know that it is difficult, and I find those times where I'm feeling anxious or just my emotions are running high that I can't name a single thing during those moments, but it becomes the process to make it so that those emotions aren't so high every time I'm triggered by that circumstance or scenario or something, that if I can then have the self-awareness to reflect and name the emotion and ask, what is this feeling? What is it underneath? Why am I feeling it this way? And bringing it to God and finding out, oh yes, it's because of this that I'm feeling this way now when this happens. That next time that comes around, I can respond differently and not just simply react. And that's the type of progress that we'd like to make, that we're not just repeating the same reactive behaviors, that we're changing our habits, but it all starts with the thoughts that then trigger the emotions, that then trigger the responses, the reactions, and form the habits that we're making. So in order to change that, we have to start back at the beginning at the thought. And so once we have that awareness, then we can start to make the change. So let's pause and reflect. What triggers me most? What emotion do I avoid feeling? And where am I reacting instead of discerning? I think as we have quiet times and we're journaling and reflecting and allowing the counsel of the Holy Spirit to guide us through, we would then be able to change our direction and realize different outcomes from that change. So let's remember that God is not ashamed of your emotions. He gave them to us, but He wants to train them. And so that's where we need to go to Him to align our will to be Spirit-led instead of operating in our self-will. And that's the next step of our emotional maturity process. So I hope that this has encouraged you. And if it has, and you know of someone who's also trying to reach a level of spiritual maturity, then invite them on this journey with us. Share this message with them. And that's where we can build a community of people who are growing together. So if this has encouraged you, then please like, share, and subscribe so that you don't miss a single thing. So until next time, take care, but bye for now.